This is a first generation 1990 Lamborghini Diablo. It's a 5.7 litre V12 monster that was my dream car when I was a kid. And this being rear wheel drive and having no ABS, no traction control, this is the rawest, toothiest version. And it's awesome. The car will not go into gear, it's in neutral, so it's just dead.
Awesome, yes, and about as reliable as week old cheese. But that's classic performance cars, right? You have to be prepared for the inconveniences of the old school. And let's face it, when they work, they light up the soul like a firework. But what would happen if you could get all the Diablo goodness, but not have a car that feels like a bomb that's about to set your hair on fire? Well then, you'd have this, the Lamborghini Eccentrica. This is more than £1 million restomod conversion of an original, a car that's been reworked to make the perfect Diablo, and we're here to see if it's worth it.
I'm Maurizio Reggiani, I am advisor for Eccentrica. Mission was to take a car of V90 with, let me say, all the peculiarity of a car of V90 that if you look with the eyes of today can be something a little bit ugly also. And to try to change the appearance means to put something more modern with a unique DNA in terms of design, but also in terms of technicality, in terms of contents, to make something that can use technology that today are available and was not available in the 90s. Means to rebuild a DNA of a car of a 90 with what can be the expectation of today's customer.
So what's actually gone on that gives you over £1 million worth of makeover? Well, let's start with the outside.
The Eccentrica is a little bit different. It still looks entirely like a Diablo, but it's changed in pretty much all of the ways. This entire body, for a start, is carbon fibre rather than aluminium and plastic, saving 40 kilos on its own. And if we start with the front, it's kind of leaner, sharper, a bit more razor-like. It's got, instead of pop-up lights on the original, it's got these linear actuated ones which kind of slide back and forth. The front is very horizontal, so it looks lower and wider, and it's a lot cleaner. And these LED daytime running lights cost €80,000 just on their own to homologate. Then there's things like the shapes that come over the front of the car. They're just sharper. It's still got the knacker ducts in the front, just like that car, but they're a little bit more razor-edged. It's like a Diablo, just seen in full resolution. And the same thing has happened to this entire profile. It's kind of been shrink wrapped and it's tighter and more modern, but still entirely diabolical. I mean, the obvious stuff are things like it's got 19-inch wheels instead of the 17-inch items on the older car. And then up here, we've got much larger intake scoops that sit on the top of the roof, and they feed fresh cold air directly into the intake plenums on the engine. Then there's these big intakes in the top that still speak to 14-year-old me. But there is something odd that still makes me smile. And do you know what that is? It's this. It's this wheel arch. Now, if you look at it, it's not square and it's not round, but it is entirely a Diablo. It's cool, isn't it?
In terms of mission of Eccentrica, DNA of Eccentrica, is clearly that design and functionality was merged together in order to try to have something really unique that was not possible in the Diablo of the 90. For example, if you see the two-air scoop on the roof of the car, we move forward to try to catch as much as possible fresh air, not disturbed from elements of the car, in order to, let me say, naturally boosted as much as possible the car, because we talk about V12, naturally aspirated engine, and for this reason it's fundamental to give as much as possible flow inside the air filter in order to increase the power. If you look at all the intake air of the car, everything is done in order to be able to put as much as possible air disposal of the radiator, means to reduce problem of cooling, problem of air conditioning, and using a modern design, functional design that really refresh all what was the family of the Diablo of the 90.
Well, it wouldn't be a Diablo without scissor doors, now would it? But first, I wanted to just show you around the old one, because this is a bit of a time warp car. Diablos were never the most ergonomic. You've got to sit here and be in a quite narrow seat with very little headroom. I'm sort of 6 foot tall and I haven't got very much, but then you've got to have really long arms and quite short legs. And all of the pedals are canted off to the right, so the clutch is almost where the brake would be in a normal car. And then this binnacle in front of me chops off half the windscreen. No matter where the steering wheel is, it takes away all of the vision of the dials, so you never really know how fast you're going or what revs you're at. And then everything else just feels, well, very of its time. I mean, look at this. This wants to fall off. There's some massive buttons, like big, chunky Lego buttons. Even the electric window switches, they go left and right instead of up and down. And then there's this big, horrible kind of cobra-headed gear shift knob in this open H-pattern gate, which is, I have to say, always feeling like it's stolen from a tractor. This is a very heavy, kind of hardcore car to drive around in, and whoever did the interior fitment must have been either drunk or high, because if you look at all the stitching, it just goes, it's not a little bit off, it's inches off. It feels like this car was thrown together. Let's face it, there is a panel gap here between the door and the dash that I can get my hand into. The Eccentrica has a lot to improve upon.
It's a bit different in here. For a start, all of the centre console has changed and everything is covered in absolutely gorgeous suede. Look at these seats. They seem to be a little bit lower. I've got a tiny bit more headroom than any other car. But the big news is the dash. For a start, that massive binnacle has disappeared, so I have a full windscreen to look out of, and then all of the dials are in this flat panel here, and it's kind of embraced retro futurism. It's like a complete game system. So there's oil pressure, oil temperature, coolant temperature, a big rev counter here which is all pixelated. Then the lights are on the left, there's various different buttons. They're kind of in the style of the original Diablo in that they're big and blocky, but they're a lot more resolved. That's the start button. And then here in the centre console, obviously, we've got this really gorgeous manual gear lever that's in this big open H-pattern gearbox. Then there's the ignition here, the parking brake is here, and the traction control button is here. And to engage them, you push them forwards. Then there's different things like a nose lift, which you wouldn't have in the original Diablo. Back here you have the drive modes. There's Aqua, which is wet, Strada, which is road, and then Pista, which is racetrack. And then the electric reverse is here. So this is actually now a 6-speed, and the electric reverse is just engaged by a button. You can flick between the modes. There's another rev counter in the really lovely thin-rimmed steering wheel, and because this has got power assisted steering, you can actually use this wheel without having to engage all of your forearms. Then on the wheel you have the indicators on little buttons, and then you can flash the lights and wash the windscreen. It just feels much more resolved, and there's loads and loads of detail in here that makes it feel really special. There's a Marantz stereo which has been bespoke made for this car, and then you can see some of the carbon cross bracing that punches through the structure of the car and heads towards the sills. It's a resolved, modern, bespoke, elevated kind of vibe. It is a Diablo, but not.
In a super sport car, it's much more important the weight than the power. If you added 20 horsepower more, only super professional driver can recognize 20 horsepower more when you talk about 500 car, like a sum up of the power that you have in a car. If you are able to reduce 20-25 kilo, every driver can recognize. If you are in a braking, if you are in a cornering, if you are in acceleration, 20 kilo give really a big improvement in the dynamic behavior of the car. Today, electronic is able to compensate all the mistake of the driver without to discover that somebody worked on your behalf. I remember in the past, if you remember the first time that you have a traction control or ABS in the car, you perceive immediately because you have vibrations. Today in the actual car, you don't perceive nothing. Everything is so smooth, so fast, and in some cases they are able to predict your mistake that you don't perceive nothing. For me, the customer of Eccentrica are people that want to be really the fuse between seat and pedal. Want to really the people that are able to ride the bull.
So I'd like to say that the Eccentrica is a completely different car to the original Diablo. But you know what? It's not. It still feels like a Diablo. Now the biggest thing is obviously that it's got power assisted steering. So it feels like the car is much more handleable straight away. You can maneuver it in a car park. You can get away with a lot more. But everything about it still feels like a Diablo, so it's still quite a hard car to drive. It's vastly, vastly improved. Now it's got the same space frame as the 1990 car, but it's had carbon bracing and a lot of stiffening to give the suspension something to push from. And now it's got adaptive, wow, it's got adaptive suspension, so I can change the settings from this knob here, from quite hard to full soft for comfort on the auto route. And because it's stiffer, it feels like that suspension has something solid to push from. And everything about it just feels that little bit easier. Now it's worth pointing out here that this is a development car. And we brought it to altitude, and the throttle bodies don't seem to like that. So it's being a bit hunty. But when it's going a bit quicker, it sorts itself out, and there's a lot of fluency in the car. But it's still a naturally aspirated joy of an engine. But it's got modern Pirelli Trofeo R tyres, so they're sticky now, they're not washing out. It's not as understeery. They're slightly wider at the front and narrower in the rear than the 1990 car, so there's a better balance. But everything feels more modern. When you brake, the Brembo brakes just feel like proper brakes. It's not washing out everywhere. Just listen to the noise, that Capristo exhaust. You feel like you can throw this car around, whereas the old Diablo, you have to manage it. I've got to say, I was a little bit worried about the Eccentrica. Not because I don't think it looks good, because I really do. I think that looks super cool, but more because I absolutely love early Lamborghini Diablos. But Eccentrica has managed to make a car that hasn't lost the gritty purpose, that makes that and that an authentic Lamborghini experience. The interesting thing is here that this car is better than that one in almost every direction. I think it looks better, it has a much nicer interior, it's got better steering, brakes, suspension, even the tyres, and yet it still feels like a Diablo. The interesting thing here is that this is a development car. It still has a few little bugs that need working out, but I still can see where it's going. And I'm confident that Eccentrica can really work that stuff out and make it into an absolute stormer. It's a Diablo, but elevated, and without the 90s flimsy.